This is one admin task photographers and couples overlook, and it can cost you thousands if you skip it. Today, I'm talking about permits. Over this video, I'm going to tell you why you need one, when you'd need one, how to get hold of one, and what to do just to make sure that a ranger isn't going to stop you mid-vows. So first things first, I'm not a lawyer. Everything I've sourced in this video is from me doing a bit of research, having a look around, and also park permits and details can change as well. Tiny cost, but really, really big benefits. So when it comes to cost, you're usually looking at about $0 to $300 for a small elopement permit or permit to use some wedding photos in an area. What do you get from this? You get privacy, clarity, and zero stress from someone coming along and interrupting a ceremony to tell you to move on. Not only that, but the rangers know you're meant to be there, so in case of any emergencies, they know exactly where to go and who to look for as well. Now, obviously, why there's this idea in nature that you can just kind of go out somewhere free isn't technically correct, but at the end of the day, paying a few $100s compared to a $15,000 wedding venue can make a little bit of a difference, really. In the whole scheme of things, it's not too bad. Small permit, big payoff. So, do you really need one? If you're going to be going to a sunset spot or a popular place or anywhere in nature where there could be sensitive fauna and flora around, yes, you do need one. It's also how you avoid this kind of awkward thing of, look, you know, we want to be at this sunset spot, we were here first, and all that stuff. One place that comes to mind is Lincoln's Rock in the Blue Mountains. I've actually been there before and seen 4 brides there at once, and with a permit, it kind of will give you that privacy just to have this spot reserved for yourself. So what does a permit buy you? Time and space. As I've said, it gives you a set space that you really love the look of so that nobody else can take that space as well. It also gives clear rules as well. So this is going to pertain to how many guests, if you can use chair, furniture, accessories, also stuff like confetti as well. In some cases, you can even have a ranger come along with you and actually get back bystanders. So if anyone does try to use the space, you can say, look, we do have a permit to be here. We got here first, basically. So what happens if you actually skip this and just decide that you're probably going to be all right, it's probably not going to be a problem, not to worry about it? Well, you can be asked by authorities to actually leave mid-ceremony. So you could be right in the middle of your vow, pouring your heart out, and then all of a sudden you'll have a ranger come up to you and tell you you need to move on because someone else has booked this space. You don't actually have the permission to be here. In really bad circumstances, you can also be fined as well. This is especially true if you are being destructive to fauna and flora, if you're not obeying the park rules and stuff like that. So this can actually cost you a lot of stress and a lot of bother, especially on your wedding day when you just want to be enjoying yourselves. Not only that, but if you're an actual wedding vendor, your insurance might actually be invalidated. So if something does happen and then you don't have a permit to pay for it, it could actually mean that your insurance is void for that. So that also includes stuff like public liability insurance, which is essential for a wedding vendor as well. Some want emails, and email is just fine. Most others will want some kind of official form filled out as well. And especially when it comes to really busy sites, it's always best to do it as soon as possible because you might not be the only one who wants to get married or have this site and ceremony space for that day, especially at weekends. It's why a lot of couples would love to elope midweek because they actually get more space. There's less people around as well, less competitive, which is really good. So let's talk about actual costs when it comes to some specific Australian sites. First up, let's talk about Canberra and the Namadgi National Park, which is where I am. Expect a simple event or filming permission and basic conditions. When it comes to elopements, it's usually a lot more small scale. So with this, it's usually going to be on the lower end of the permit fees. Typically, we're talking here maybe $100 or $200 typically. In some spaces, if it is really, really minimal, you might just need to have a site booking. There might not be any permission fees with that. But as I said, always email ACT Parks just to double check with them. So let's speak about the Blue Mountains in New South Wales. Very, very popular elopement spot. Small ceremony booking is about $330 for a 1 or 2 hour slot, and private gatherings over 20 people need permission. Some day use car parks also have fees associated with it, so remember to remind your guests for that as well. So now let's talk Tasmania. For example, Cradle Mountain. A wedding permit is typically about $175 to $200 depending on whether it's a weekend or weekday, and there's also park entry fees to consider as well for this. This is quite a common thing in some national parks you'll go to. Getting the permit is one thing, but also you still need to pay the actual park fees to enter and use the space. And now let's talk about the Northern Territory and places like Uluru as well, or the old name, Ayers Rock. Now for this, you might not need a permit at some outlooks, but you might yet again need to pay park entry fees where applicable. Yeah, again, with all these things, best to actually email the rangers and the national park just to make sure there's nothing else you're missing out on there. So now let's talk about Queensland. So we're talking places like Brisbane, Brisbane, Cairns, anywhere over there. So Queensland national parks have a slightly lower rate. Usually right below $100 is typically how much it costs for a small permit for an elopement or ceremony. However, if you are dealing with councils, like you want to go to a local beach, yeah, again, that could be something to actually talk to the council specifically to see what they're going to charge you for that. Yet again, some councils might not actually need a booking fee, but they might want you to actually formally book it as a time. Let's talk about Victoria and South Australia really quickly as well. Most national parks here don't really charge for entry, but yet again, you may need a permit when it actually comes to filming inside places. For example, like the Dandenong Ranges in Victoria is another really popular spot that sometimes you might need permission for. And it's always best to email the local offices as well. Yeah, again, I think with a lot of these places, if you're honest and truthful and actually email these offices beforehand, you might not find there's actually any kind of fees attached to it, and it might be okay. It just needs a formal booking. And that gives you a little bit of a breakdown of various little parts around Australia. As I say, it does vary a lot. You can have anything from up to $300 plus, but typically a good thing to budget for is, I would say, about $500 for permit fees, just in case there's any additional admin spots as well. Also, I'm just talking about for my own services as a photographer. Celebrants also will have to go through this, and any other wedding vendors who will be using the space with you. For example, videographers as well are another one, but we all need to have permission. We all need to make sure we're doing the right thing. And just to give you a little bit of an idea about what these permits will usually entail, these are things that are really going to be about the principles of leave no trace. So this is really important. It's about respecting the environment, making sure that we're not putting any water solutions in waterways that need to be clean, no confetti, no open flames, sticking to paths as well, not going too off, making sure that hire furniture isn't too excessive. You know, for example, if maybe you've got a small arch, that's fine, but if you're going to have 100 chairs, that's probably going to start to have a slight problem. Unfortunately, the absence of pets, and also it means that you can't use drones as well in quite a few national parks. If you're finding this information helpful, do give me a follow on Instagram. I do talk about this stuff quite a lot on there as well. You can follow me at Who Shot the Photographer. Anyway, let's get back to it. So let's talk about permits and how we actually get hold of them. So who actually applies for this? Is it yourself as a couple? Is it me as a photographer? Who does it? Well, because this is formally your event as the couple getting married, it's actually your duty to apply for the permit. However, if I'm honest, what I'll do is, as an elopement photographer and guide, I actually help fill this out for you. This means I can go through it, write down the locations, and I'll have a bit more of an idea, indication of kind of timings and where to go. These things are really essential for a permit. You need to be very specific usually in them so that they can actually grant specific space usage for where you want to go. And what will typically happen is I'll complete the paperwork, send it off, usually get invoiced what the permit details are. I'll then pass it on to the couple, and then they would pay me, and then I would pay the office in the end. And also for photographers, you need to carry all of your insurance documents, so public liability insurance documents as well, which is incredibly important, as well as the permit application and grant access confirmation too. So that's Australia in a nutshell. Let's talk about New Zealand. So one of the biggest bodies in New Zealand is the Department of Conservation, the DOC. So they're actually in charge of giving permits, and you'll be surprised at how much land is actually DOC land. So it's a really important thing to check this before eloping over there, before making any decisions about locations as well. So you will need a permit if you are going to be doing a small elopement or any photography work there for commercial reasons too. So typically there's no actual national park entry fee in a lot of places in New Zealand, but you do need to make sure you have this permit sorted. So in New Zealand, in my experience, it's a little bit more expensive. So for example, I know for a photographer, it's 500 New Zealand dollars, which is 300 to 350 plus a usually about a $200 processing fee. So it can be a little bit more pricey than other permits typically, but it is very, very essential, and you need to make sure you do it. And as usual, drones are banned from most places. Yet again, these can be very invasive to the local wildlife. They can be a disruption, and of course, if they get lost, it can cause big, big damage to the environment. So let's go over to Europe and give you a bit of an idea of how it works over there. So ultimately, trying to cover Europe in one video is kind of impossible, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown. Biggest advice I would say, as usual, is definitely reach out to the governing body of the area you want to go, which is usually a national park. For example, Scotland and Scandinavia actually can be pretty chill, and sometimes they won't even charge you a fee, but it's always best to have a look and check anyway. Places like England and Italy and Germany are quite busy places, so they will want you to get a permit, and there's probably some fees associated with that, so definitely don't make an assumption there. This is another really big tip. I see sometimes as an elopement photographer, people will look on Google Maps and say, oh, we really want to go to this place. It looks like it's over a fence. This is where you've got to actually check whether that land is privately owned or not. If it is privately owned, you need to get hold of the landowner or the council involved. Because if you don't, then theoretically you're trespassing. And don't get me wrong, there's so many cool places to see and we would love to have photos in, but at the end of the day, it's private land and you've got to play by the rules. You cannot break the law. It's just bad idea. So we'll talk about another favorite place of mine now, Japan. It's a funny one because in my research and experience, Japan doesn't really have as stringent permit plans as I've been talking about previously. However, a lot of it comes down to being respectful, as is the Japanese culture. They're really making sure they're not making too much of a fuss and you are respecting the land and the space ultimately. This is true except to everything when it comes to temples and shrines. So this is a really important thing. When it comes to temples and shrines, typically you won't want to walk in there with big wedding attire, making a big fuss. It's just not really done. It's also very sensitive sacred sites as well. For example, when I've been in Japan, we've kept things very low key just to make sure we are being respectful to the local area, being very quiet, not making a big scene, and ultimately making sure we don't interfere with anything. And many temples and shrines and museums won't let you be there without written explicit permission. So do make sure you actually reach out and set expectations right as well. There are also some city parks that do require a permit. So yet again, do double check. I know I've been saying a lot of different things here, but at the end of the day, best thing to do is always check where you're going to be and then make sure you've got the right permit as well. And needless to say, drone rules are very strict everywhere around Japan, so you've got to be very careful with that. Make sure you have a wet weather backup plan as well. So this is another thing I think that needs to be talked about a bit, but it can happen sometimes in elopements where you think, oh, we want to go to this place, it's going to be good, we've got a permit, and then the weather comes in. This is why having contact details at a local council, even someone you can ring potentially on the day to just check and say, hey, can we actually get it for this area? Some parks are pretty lenient, they'll allow that, it's not a problem. And yet again, if you've actually gone through the effort of getting the paperwork, you should be okay. But it's important to talk to your guide and elopement photographer to make sure you have backups of these places and a wet weather plan sorted as well, just in case the weather turns. So I get that permits aren't really the most sexy thing to talk about, but it is a really important thing to talk about nonetheless. Otherwise on your day, you might even be moved along, fined, or threatened with legal action, which nobody ever wants on their elopement or wedding day. Now, another quick thing, you might be looking at this thinking, well, we're gonna have a wedding. Like, does this actually matter? If you're having an outside ceremony space in public nature or somewhere where there might be a permit applicable, you do need a permit. Usually on private property, so for example, wedding venues, that won't be a problem, but yet again, do check the actual land you might go to for private photos afterwards as well. For example, I've had couples who have got married at a really beautiful beach coastal estate, but then they've gone onto the beach after, and that would be then when you need to get permission from the council. Yet again, I know that this seems like a lot of red tape, but it's done there to protect yourselves, it's done to protect the environment, and at the end of the day, it's one of those small things where if you get it done, it's going to give you peace of mind. Better that than being moved along halfway through the day or being fined. Small permit, big payoff. Ultimately, it's cheaper than a $15,000 wedding venue to get one of these permits outside, and it's going to give you privacy, legality, and a calm sense of peace that you're not going to be moved along halfway through. I've actually written a blog post about this whole topic with the link down below you can go and check out on my website, which goes over everything I've talked about here and a little bit more as well. And if you want help on choosing elopement spots for yourselves, do get in contact with me. I absolutely love helping couples and capturing and designing elopements, so please don't be afraid to get in contact. My Instagram is @WhoShotThePhotographer, which you can check out in the link below as well. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.